I definitely can't read as well as I used to around a decade ago. And I don't think I'm alone in that. In fact, I actually know I'm not alone in it. You see, in 2024, The Atlantic published an article relaying the concerns of literature professors at top universities who all claimed that their students struggle to read a book or two a semester, compared to a decade ago when students could easily read a book a week for classes. And these demands are not too dissimilar from my own experience, because when I did my master's, which was a decade ago, I know, my goodness, I was expected to read around 3 to 4 books a week, and that included tomes like James Joyce's Ulysses. And okay, that week when James Joyce's Ulysses was also on the reading list was a really hard week, but I actually still managed it along with all my other reading. And it was heavy reading. It was like literary theory and philosophy. It was so intense. However, now I can barely get to the end of my monthly book club book. And sometimes I don't even start it. So why is it that we find it so easy to scroll for hours and consume like 3-hour video essays or live streams, and yet feel completely exhausted at the very thought, let alone act, of reading Les Miserables or War and Peace for like 30 minutes to an hour? Is our digital age to blame for our decline in immersive reading? And if so, what does this mean for our minds and our culture and well-being? Well, first, we need to start with the obvious question, which is, what does it mean by deep reading? Deep reading is the process of reading in which engages our thought faculties to analyse and interpret and reflect on the text that we're reading. In his 1994 book, The Gutenberg Elegies, The Fate of Reading in an Electronic Age, Sven Berkertz defines deep reading as, quote, the slow and meditative possession of a book. We don't just read the words, we dream our lives in their vicinity. I know, that was a book about reading in a digital age in 1994. He had no idea the storm that was on the horizon. That was many years before skim reading every day became the norm. Every few seconds, we will skim read headlines, skim read articles, skim read comments, skim read emails, skim read blog posts, skim read texts, all as an evolutionary response to the amount of information we are expected to consume every day. But if you're feeling a little bit down by this topic, thinking about like losing yourself to the internet or losing days or years of your life to the internet, sitting in front of a screen all this time, well, I hope I can cheer you up briefly with a lovely, wholesome sponsor that will be right up your street, which is Craftsy. Craftsy is an online community and resource where millions of crafters and makers and DIY enthusiasts can learn new or improve their existing creative skills. So whether you're interested in how to draw or sew or do yoga, cook, bake, decorate cakes, or even start woodworking, Craftsy has over 2,000 exciting classes led by talented and really friendly experts who will inspire you with their wisdom and their passion. One thing I've been talking about for years is I don't take advantage of living in the beautiful city of Edinburgh. It's a painter's dream, and I've always wanted to learn how to use like mixed media sketches and do like urban sketching. And when I looked on Craftsy, that's the first thing I looked up, and there's a whole class on urban sketching by Mark Taro Holmes. I was like, yes, this is exactly what I needed. It's so niche, but it's like watercolour and ink and pencil, and that's exactly what I wanted to learn. And it's not just video classes, because members have access to Craftsy's live streaming tutorials where experts will come online and they'll share their tips with you and even answer questions directly in real time. So if you want to find the joy of just making something for the first time or improving your own skills, then Craftsy has an awesome deal for you. The first 1,000 of you to click the link in the video description down below will get a full year of premium membership at Craftsy for only $1.49. I know, it's an insane deal. So if you're doing a no-buy year, you can probably make an exception for that. $1.49 for a whole year of premium membership. But it's only valid to new members and the first 1,000 people to click the link in the description box below. So check it out down there. And thank you so much for Craftsy for sponsoring today's video. You know, we no longer receive letters every few months from our friends and family. We receive multiple texts from multiple people every few hours, if not every few minutes, along with multiple emails from customers and colleagues and managers. So back in the 90s, when he talked about deep reading, that was more of a studious approach than typical reading. But our typical reading nowadays, like 30 years later, has become so wildly diluted that for us to even engage with a text in any meaningful level, amidst the cacophony of digital screeching that we're surrounded by, we have to put in nearly as much effort as someone did in the 90s when they read deeply, if not more effort, to just experience the text by itself. Our books are no longer the primary entities anymore, and we treat them how we treat everything else in our lives. We are so used to skimming that skimming books kind of becomes natural. Only books haven't been made for skimming yet. If Netflix's demands that scriptwriters write less engaging scripts to ensure Netflix shows become background features secondary to a person's phone, I don't put much faith in the publishing industry not to follow suit with that trend. But at the moment, most books are written for engagement and have been written for engagement for centuries. To make matters more complicated, deep reading is entirely counterintuitive in the age of Goodreads, where readers strive to read as much as possible, to fill up their numbers online and create new targets for themselves and say how much they read this year, rather than reading really meaningfully and slowly and reflectively. Reading has become more of like a tally challenge rather than a learned process of reflecting on and even writing about a text someone has read. And it's been like that for a few years. I remember multiple times where I've gone into conversations with people and I'd ask them about like a book that they read, and the amount of time someone said that they really enjoyed a book but they couldn't remember the plot, they couldn't tell me anything about it, they couldn't remember the character's name or the name of the book itself. And who can blame us? Our brains are no longer built for preserving information or focusing or working tentatively on a single matter at a time. In his book, The Shallows, What the Internet is Doing to Our Brain, Nicholas Carr writes of his terrifying realisation that many of us also feel within our bodies. Quote, "Someone or something has been tinkering with my brain, remapping the neural circuitry, reprogramming the memory. I'm not thinking the way I used to think. I feel it most strongly when I'm reading. I used to find it easy to immerse myself in a book or a lengthy article. My mind would get caught up on the twists of the narrative or the turns in the argument, and I'd spend hours strolling through long stretches of prose. That's rarely the case anymore. Now my concentration starts to drift after a page or two. I get fidgety, lose the thread, begin looking for something else to do. I feel like I'm always dragging my wayward brain back to the text. The deep reading that used to come naturally has become a struggle." As you can guess from the book's title, Carr's core argument is that the internet is shallowing our brains by weakening the parts of our brains by offloading certain tasks onto computers instead. This results in the reduction of our ability to read linearly. We begin to think like computers that we use all day. So it only works in short bursts of attention. It jumps around like we do from tab to tab or from post to post, skimming around like our brain is constantly on Control F. Because computers are multifunctional, our brains mirror this multifunctionality because we spend so much time around it. We pull ourselves in different directions. It's trying to multitask constantly. Hence why we can't even go down the street without seeing someone walking whilst typing on their phone or looking at their phone, or someone driving whilst looking at their phone, or people having dinner and someone looking at their phone, or people in a room and one person walks away and the other person immediately pulls out their phone. It's really bloody depressing when you watch it happen in person. So our inability to read deeply is making more and more of us identify as bad readers or slow readers or unintelligent, which I felt my whole life as a dyslexic anyway. But still, I actually feel like my dyslexia has become worse. I've noticed my mental health and well-being rapidly declining over the past decade, particularly in the past year or two. And that has seemed to have happened with my increased time that I've been forced to spend staring at a screen for work or research. Most books for academia exist only as online text now, which is fantastic for accessibility, but really bloody awful for one's concentration. Whenever I have to switch tabs from one to the other, like one that I'm reading on and one that I'm writing on, I feel my brain screaming with fury at the sense of overwhelm and fast-paced nature. And what's worse is, there's never a reason not to read an article referenced within another academic paper. It's easy enough for me to get it, but that only amounts to endless PDF files swelling my digital database, screaming at me to hurry up because the deadline is looming and you haven't read this stuff yet and you have no excuse not to read it because it's right there. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not here to slag off skimming. Strategic skimming and skipping is kind of an essential skill, particularly in academia, because we don't have time to read everything when we're referencing some random tertiary theory or idea. But when skimming and skipping becomes the methodology for primary and secondary resource reading, that's when we have a bit of a problem. Focused attention meditation has been shown to activate the anterior cingulate cortex, the area of the brain that is engaged when detecting errors and interference, which is essential for critical analysis, something which has been sorely lost in the internet age. We see it every day. So if you are someone who's unsure as to how often you engage with deep reading, I would ask you how much you relate to Marcel Proust's description of reading in your everyday life. Quote, "Reading, unlike conversation, consists for each of us in receiving the communication of another thought while remaining alone, or, in other words, while continuing to bring into play the mental powers we have in solitude and which conversation immediately puts to flight, while remaining open to inspiration, the soul still hard at its fruitful labours upon itself." If this sounds a distant or rare feature for you whilst you're reading and then taking a picture of yourself whilst reading in a cafe or your book open and things like that, and you're thinking about how to edit your photograph more than reading the book, perhaps it's time to retrain your brain for the art of deep reading. Now here's some practical examples where we can start with that. First, before reading anything, now this is the hardest one, okay, so before reading anything, whether that's an article online, a blog post, an email, or even a text, start practicing meditation. Now that doesn't mean to be a whole meditation session. Depending on the size of the text that you're expecting to read, it can be anything from 6 seconds of breathing in and 6 seconds of breathing out to 5 minutes of meditation practice. So say you have a text and you get the notification on your screen. Before you open it and react to that notification, breathe in for 6 seconds, breathe out for 6 seconds, and then try reading the text immediately. And then try responding to it as well. Now, it also seems obvious to say this, but minimize distractions. Yes, at the beginning, this will include things like music and background noise. Background noises like lo-fi music or even cafe sounds is great when you are good at deep reading. If you're still in the retraining process, you're unlikely to have the benefits of these things like classical music or lo-fi. When deep reading is second nature, you can incorporate those things, but for now, try and practice doing it in complete silence. That's going to be really painful and hard, and the fact that you find that painful and hard is why you need to train to do it. Now, if you're reading and writing online, such as in academia, only keep 2 tabs open, the one that you're writing on and the one that you're reading. Close your email and keep your phone completely away from you or off entirely if you can. If you're dealing with multiple tabs, create a spreadsheet of the things that you need to look at and what they are, like title and things like that, and keep the links there and only open them when you need to read them. Don't keep them all open, because trust me, as someone at one point who had 175 tabs, it's impossible to keep track of that many tabs. You can also go old school, which is what I'm doing at the moment. I've gone back to old school pen and paper. So when I'm reading, I keep a notebook by my side and I write down all of my notes rather than typing them out. It seems like a long forward process, but I'm actually more productive this way than I am when just doing it on the computer, because I need more breaks when I do it on the computer rather than by doing it by hand. Similarly, whenever you find yourself feeling mentally overstimulated, stop what you're doing, take out another notebook, and write down everything you're experiencing. Even if it's a sticky pad, write down your overwhelm. You can also try using the Pomodoro technique of reading for 25 minutes and then having 5 minutes off. This is my little wee Pomodoro timer thing. I love it. I love this thing so much. It's so cute, and it's my little pride and joy on my desk all the time. Additionally, when you take your 5-minute break, or however many minutes breaks you do, I tend to do 50-minute and then 10-minute break. Try to keep all your distractions in your break time non-digital. So stay away from your phone or your computer. Keep away from a screen. Like, go and make a cup of tea, go stretch your legs, go play with your dog. Something not screen related. I hope you found this little video interesting or beneficial. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing or sharing it to other people. Thank you as always to my Patreons for making these videos possible. And until next time, I will see you soon for another video. And remember, books save lives. So keep reading.